What if the only thing standing between you and retiring a decade from now isn't your income, your job, or even the market, but the fact that the first few years feel painfully slow? The irony is that those invisible years are exactly when most people walk away from the plan that could have freed them. Here's what most people never hear early enough: the slow beginning doesn't mean the system is broken, it just means your money hasn't had enough time to work on its own yet. Everyone who eventually reaches financial freedom goes through the same quiet, unexciting phase before anything noticeable starts happening. My name is Alex, and after studying people who retired early and experiencing my own slow start, I've learned that understanding this early phase is the turning point. Once you grasp why the beginning feels so sluggish, you can finally make sense of the ingredients that actually move the needle: the tipping point, the doubling cycles, the role of income growth, the discipline of lifestyle lock, and the structure of a three-layer money machine. And that sets up the real question: how do you bring all of those pieces together in a way that builds a genuine 10-year retirement plan? Today, we're going to break that down step by step. And if you like clear, practical explanations that make money feel more manageable, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next breakdown. The hidden tipping point most people miss. There's a moment in every wealth building journey that almost nobody recognizes when it's happening. It's not dramatic, it's not exciting, and it doesn't come with a notification saying, "Hey, you're about to break through." In fact, it usually shows up disguised as disappointment. And because of that, most people quit right before it arrives. The early stage of building wealth is awkward. It feels like pushing a heavy wheel that refuses to move. You're saving, investing, cutting back, doing what you're supposed to do, and yet the numbers barely change. The human brain looks at those small results and says, "This isn't working. Why am I sacrificing for nothing?" But that reaction isn't telling you the truth. It's telling you what the beginning of every compounding journey feels like. This is the stage where your dollars are still passive participants. They're not earning much on their own yet. You're carrying the entire load through discipline and effort, and because progress is tiny, it feels like failure. But in reality, this small, unremarkable stage is the foundation that makes everything else possible. Consider Lisa's story. At 28, she made a decision. She wanted to leave her job by 40. She didn't chase extreme investments or gamble on trends. She simply committed to saving $500 a month. For 3 years, she stuck to it, packed lunches, skipped vacations, kept the old car, and built just under $20,000. After all that discipline, the number looked painfully small. A coworker bought a new car, her friends went on trips. Lisa wondered if she was being unrealistic. She almost stopped. But here's the part that matters. Her progress wasn't small, it was structural. She wasn't just accumulating money, she was building mass. The dollars she saved were finally strong enough to start earning dollars of their own. That transition, the moment when growth no longer depends entirely on your effort, is the tipping point most people never notice. Think of it like a bridge. It's fragile, narrow, and comes after months or years of feeling like nothing is happening. Most people turn around right before they reach it. But the ones who cross it, they're the ones who discover that compounding doesn't feel linear. It feels slow. 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 And then suddenly, obvious. This tipping point isn't luck. It's the predictable moment when the math shifts in your favor. And you may be closer to it than you think. The early retirement clock. The rule of 72. One of the biggest breakthroughs on the path to early retirement is realizing that money doesn't grow in a straight line. It grows in jumps, and those jumps follow a rhythm. Once you understand that rhythm, retiring in 10 or 15 years stops feeling like a fantasy and starts looking like a timeline you can actually track. That rhythm is captured in a very simple idea called the rule of 72. Here's how it works. Take the number 72 and divide it by your average annual return. The result tells you how many years it takes for your money to double. That's it. No fancy equations, no advanced finance. Just one number that turns the entire compounding process into a clock you can set on your mental dashboard. Let's put real numbers to it. Imagine your investments average 10% a year. 72 divided by 10 equals roughly 7.2. That means your money doubles about every 7 years. Start with $50,000. In one cycle, you're at $100,000. In 2 cycles, $200,000. In 3 cycles, $400,000. The steps start slow, but the leaps get bigger and bigger. And here's the part most people underestimate. The later cycles do the heavy lifting. One doubling can add more to your net worth than the previous 5 years of saving combined. But there's a catch, and it's a costly one. Most people start too late. Missing just one doubling cycle can delay your timeline by a full decade. That's not a small penalty. That's the difference between being free at 45 or still working at 60. Time compounds against you just as powerfully as money compounds for you. Michael's story is the perfect example. In his 30s, he invested $60,000. After 7 years, it doubled to around $120,000. At first, he didn't feel anything special. It took forever to get there. But the next cycle hit him differently. His $120,000 doubled again to $240,000, and he realized something important. He wasn't working harder, he wasn't saving more. His money had finally become the engine. The system was now producing results faster than he was contributing, and that's the beauty of treating the Rule of 72 like your personal retirement clock. Each doubling isn't just about numbers going up, it's years of future work being erased. Once you see how many cycles fit into the next decade, you stop guessing and start planning. And that clarity can completely change the way you approach time, income, and freedom. Why saving alone will not get you there. There's a comforting idea floating around personal finance. If you just save consistently, everything will eventually work out. And don't get me wrong, saving is essential. It's the foundation. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Almost nobody says out loud, saving alone will never compress a 40-year career into 10. It can move you forward, but it can't move you fast. Think about the typical advice you hear. Save 10% of your income. Sounds responsible, right? Let's test it. If you're earning $4,000 a month, 10% is $400. Over a year, that's $4,800. Over a decade, that's about $48,000 before any growth. Respectable, yes. But when your goal is early retirement, it's nowhere near enough fuel. Even with strong returns, say 10% annually, that decade of disciplined saving gets you to around $77,000. Better than zero, but not life-changing. It won't buy back decades of freedom. And that's the problem. The math of saving alone moves in inches, not leaps. Meanwhile, life keeps getting louder. Rent rises, groceries spike, healthcare creeps up. The world doesn't freeze while you try to save your way to independence. Relying purely on frugality means you're trying to outrun a treadmill that speeds up every year. No matter how disciplined you are, the gap between effort and results eventually becomes discouraging. This is why so many hardworking people feel stuck. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just relying on a strategy that was never designed to create fast freedom. Saving is defensive. It prevents backsliding. But it doesn't accelerate. And to retire in 10 years, you need acceleration, something that multiplies the impact of each dollar instead of simply storing it. There's another psychological trap here. When you rely entirely on saving, every sacrifice feels heavy because the payoff is small. You skip dinners, delay vacations, downgrade cars, and the needle barely moves. Over time, it starts to feel like deprivation without reward. That's when people give up, not because they lack discipline, but because the system they're using produces tiny results in the early years. The real breakthrough is understanding that saving is step one, not the destination. It builds the base, the weight that compounding can eventually lift. But without increasing your contributions over time, without adding more fuel to the engine, compounding can only work so fast. And that leads to the real inflection point. If saving alone can't get you to early retirement, what can? The answer is building the kind of income engine that turns small contributions into serious momentum. Offense, the income engine you must build. If saving is the foundation of early retirement, then income growth is the accelerator. It's the part of the plan that turns a slow crawl into real momentum. Without it, the numbers just don't move fast enough. With it, everything changes. The contribution size, the compounding cycles, and the actual math behind retiring in a decade. Think about it like this. If you're currently putting away $400 a month, you're playing the game at a certain speed. But if your income jumps and you can put away $1,000 or even $2,000 a month, you're suddenly playing an entirely different game. The timeline doesn't stretch by a few months, it shrinks by entire years. Offense is simply the ability to increase how much money flows into your system. And the good news is, there are only a few reliable paths: getting promoted, switching to higher value roles, developing an income producing skill, or building a side stream that stacks on top of your main job. You don't need all of them, you just need one channel that steadily increases your monthly surplus. People often underestimate how powerful even a modest income jump can be. Going from $4,000 a month to $6,000 isn't just a little more money. It can double or triple what you're able to invest. That shift is what unlocks faster doubling cycles, and those cycles are what create the kind of compounding required to buy back decades of your life. But here's the part that tends to surprise people. Offense doesn't require dramatic life changes. You don't need to start a massive business or become a finance expert. Sometimes it's as simple as learning a skill that your industry pays a premium for: project management, analytics, design, coding, sales, or taking on freelance work that fits into your existing schedule. The internet made income scalable. You can add an extra stream without quitting your day job. What matters most is momentum. When your income grows, your contributions grow. And when your contributions grow, compounding finally has something substantial to work with. That's when you start noticing progress that feels real. Not slow, not invisible, but measurable and motivating. This is what separates people who retire early from people who try for years without traction. The ones who succeed don't rely on saving alone. They give their system more fuel, they widen the gap between what they earn and what they spend, and they direct that gap straight into investments. Once offense is in motion, you're no longer depending on tiny contributions. You're building a wealth engine that can actually hit the 10-year mark. Defense, lifestyle lock, and the anti-creep rule. Once your income starts growing, the real battle begins, and it's not the one most people expect. The challenge isn't earning more, it's keeping that extra income from disappearing. This is where defense comes in, and it's the part almost everyone ignores. Offense gives you fuel. Defense decides whether that fuel actually reaches the engine. Here's the quiet trap. Every time income rises, lifestyle tries to rise with it. You get a raise, and suddenly the nicer apartment feels reasonable. A bonus shows up, and the upgraded car feels earned. A side hustle picks up, and weekend spending becomes a little looser. None of these decisions feel reckless. They feel normal. And that's exactly why lifestyle creep is so dangerous. It sneaks in disguised as comfort. The rule that early retirees follow is simple: when your income goes up, your expenses stay flat. If you were living on $3,600 a month before the raise, you keep living on $3,600 after the raise. That difference between what you make and what you need becomes pure investment fuel. It's the gap, not the income itself, that builds wealth. Let's look at what this actually does in practice. Imagine two people. One makes $4,000 a month and saves 10%. After 10 years, with compounding, they end up around $77,000. Solid, but not enough to quit working. Now imagine someone who grows their income to $10,000 a month, but keeps their lifestyle exactly where it was. Suddenly they're investing thousands every month. At the end of that same decade, their account was around $193,000. Same time, same market, same world, more than double the result. And it wasn't because they were smarter, it was because they protected the gap. One of the best habits you can build is treating every raise or new income stream as if it belonged to someone else. Don't let it hit your spending account. Set an automatic transfer that moves it straight into investments. Think of every extra dollar as a worker joining your financial team. Your job isn't to spend it, it's to assign it. Workers who go into your investments don't take days off. They don't need motivation, they don't stop compounding. Workers who drift into lifestyle upgrades, they disappear forever. Defense isn't glamorous, but it's the difference between people who grow wealth and people who watch higher income slip through their fingers. And once your defense is locked in, you're ready for the system that makes early retirement actually sustainable. The 3-layer money machine. Now that you've built the fuel and protected it, the next step is creating a system that keeps growing whether you're working, sleeping, or taking a year off. That's where the 3-layer money machine comes in. Think of it as a portfolio designed not just to grow, but to survive every type of market environment without falling apart. Growth, income, and stability, Each plays a different role, and you need all three working together. Let's start with the first layer, growth, the engine. These are assets that push your money past inflation and steadily build long-term wealth. The core here is broad index funds, supported by a mix of growth stocks and dividend payers. Growth assets don't just add value, they create the bulk of your compounding. Without this layer, your savings might look good today but shrink in buying power over time. It's the part of the machine that makes the numbers move, but relying only on growth has a built-in flaw. Markets rise, but they also fall, sometimes sharply. If growth is your only layer, then during a downturn, you'd be forced to sell investments at the worst possible time. That's where the second layer steps in. Income. These are assets like REITs, dividend stocks, and rental properties. Investments that pay you regardless of whether the market is having a good year or a terrible one. Income isn't flashy, but it's dependable. Every dividend, every rent check is fuel. It either helps cover your expenses or gets reinvested to speed up future growth. This layer gives your system cash flow so you don't have to touch your long-term holdings. Then comes the third layer, stability, your shock absorber. These are things like treasury bonds, high-yield savings accounts, and a small allocation to gold. Their job isn't to impress you. Their job is to protect you. When markets swing wildly, stability gives you liquidity. It keeps your engine alive so you're never forced to sell valuable assets just to stay afloat. It's the difference between sticking to your strategy and panic selling when volatility hits. One more safeguard that often gets overlooked, currency diversification. A small position in international markets or stronger currencies like the euro or Swiss franc adds another layer of protection, especially during periods of economic uncertainty. When these three layers run together, you get a portfolio that grows, pays, and protects all at once. And that's exactly what you need for an early retirement that doesn't fall apart the moment the market gets bumpy. The 10-year path. Turning the system into freedom. By this point, you've built the ingredients that actually make early retirement possible. You understand the slow beginning, the tipping point, the doubling cycles, the importance of income growth, the discipline of lifestyle lock, and the structure of the three-layer portfolio. The only thing left is turning all of that into a real practical 10-year plan, one that doesn't depend on luck, timing, or a perfect market. The first step is simple. Start early enough to catch more doubling cycles. This alone can shave entire decades off your working life. If your money doubles every 7 years, or faster if your returns improve, then each cycle represents years of future labor you won't have to endure. Most people miss this because they spend years waiting for the right moment. The right moment is the one where you begin. Every delay pushes freedom further away. Next comes the core of the strategy. Grow your income while freezing your lifestyle. This combination is what creates the large contributions that compound quickly. It's not the raise itself that changes your future. It's keeping your lifestyle flat after the raise. That gap between what you make and what you need becomes the fuel for everything else. For some people, this gap grows slowly. For others who pursue new roles or build side streams, it grows fast enough to compress decades into a single decade. Once the money is flowing, the three-layer portfolio becomes your operating system. Growth assets pull your wealth upward over time. Income assets provide cash flow that reduces pressure. Stability assets protect your progress when markets wobble. And reinvesting 10 to 20% of your passive income ensures the machine keeps outrunning inflation long after your day job fades out of the picture. But here's the part most people underestimate. The real power isn't in assembling the system, it's in leaving it alone long enough for the math to kick in. The temptation to interrupt the plan is constant. Markets will dip, the news will panic, friends will spend freely, but the people who retire early aren't the ones with the highest IQ or the highest income. They're the ones who stay consistent long enough for compounding to overtake their effort. So the 10-year path really comes down to this. Start now, grow your income, lock your lifestyle, invest the difference into a balanced system, and commit to a full year of proving to yourself that you can stick to it. 1 year of discipline sets up 9 years of acceleration. And when the system starts moving faster than you do, that's when early retirement stops being a dream and becomes your timeline. Key takeaways. Early retirement isn't a fantasy, a loophole, or a lucky break. It's a sequence. And once you understand that sequence, the path becomes shockingly practical. The slow beginning is not failure, it's the foundation. Every dollar you save early is the weight that compounding needs before it can start lifting for you. The real turning point happens when your money begins earning more money without your effort, and that moment arrives sooner when you feed the system consistently. The rule of 72 gives you the clock. It shows you how many doubling cycles fit into the next decade and how missing even one cycle can cost you years of freedom. Saving alone won't get you there, but income growth will. When you increase what you earn and keep your lifestyle flat, the gap becomes pure investment fuel, the kind that accelerates compounding instead of dragging it out. Your portfolio needs structure, growth to build, income to sustain, stability to protect. Reinvest even a small portion of your passive income, and your system stays ahead of inflation long after you step away from work. The formula is simple: start early, earn more, spend the same, invest the difference, and let time do what time does best. You follow that, and 10 years becomes a real timeline, not a wish.